Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Wes Fryer. Today is Tuesday, the 24th, maybe something like that. Get my watch going here. August the 26th. You'd think I'd have that right. 2025, and I want to talk a little bit about European history in 1937 and 1938. It's a little light historical thinking for today. So I started reading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich this summer. And shout out to my Air Force Academy classmate, Mark McCurley, who had posted and said this is his favorite book. I admit that I have not ever read this book. Of course, I've studied World War II, world history, the history of Europe, in different phases of life. I am about a third of the way through the book. This is a very large book, and I'm reading it on Kindle, so it says like 31% finished, whatever. So, as most people, I don't know, who knows, as we all need to know, in 1938, the European leadership, primarily Chamberlain in England, but also the president of France and other leaders, basically gave Czechoslovakia over to Adolf Hitler and the Nazi government in Germany without a fight. And so there's a lot of really, really good historical facts and scenes and things that I've been picking up here. And this was appeasement. This was the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. Shout out to Mrs. Mickey Bogart, my world history teacher, who now lives at Meadowlark Hills, where my dad is. We studied this. I remember talking, that was like sophomore year of high school, baby. That was like 1985, 1986. I have some memories of that, but I did not realize how weak Hitler was militarily in both 37 and 38. In 37, there were rumors they had the Anschluss, which was basically, again, the taking over of Austria, this time by Germany, quote unquote, by peaceful means, but there was a lot of military threatening. I had not realized that the SA in Germany was really important, as well as the SS. The SA were basically armed militias, and there was like the goon squad, right, who was able to carry out political terror and violence on the part of the Nazi party, and then just also sort of grassroots violence. The SA, that's like Sierra Alpha, not the SS, which came later, through Himmler, and SS, ran the death camps. But anyway, 37, Anschluss, Austria and Germany become one, but there were threats that Germany was going to take Czechoslovakia. And so it was really this huge ramp up of diplomatic pressure against Germany by England, by France. Russia was also in that mix, that stalled and stopped Hitler from trying to move militarily. Now, Germany's military was not ready for a two-front war against Russia and the Western powers by any means in 37. And even in 38, Germany's population was so much larger than France, and their military capacity and their industrial capacity was also so much greater. France had created a lot of alliances with different countries. I think in the Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, they say that Czechoslovakia had like 35 divisions of soldiers, and they had kind of their own Maginot Line in the defensive mountains of Western Czechoslovakia, in what was referred to as the Sudetenland. And so anyway, Chamberlain at Munich in 1938, thought he was achieving this fantastic success to be able to have peace in our time and to preserve the peace. But actually, there was military capability at that time both in 1937, which really angered Hitler. The fact that he had been stopped by a lot of diplomatic and political pressure really angered him, further solidified his desire to take over Czechoslovakia. And, he wasn't, the military, they did not have the power. The military of Germany did not have sufficient forces and equipment and weapons and capability to be able to stop the European powers and then Russia if they had militarily opposed Germany. They didn't. They gave it over. Here's something else, and I'll stop because this is like a history lecture, which could kind of go on forever. But there was a well-documented plan to have a military coup d'etat in Nazi Germany in 1938. The leaders of the military were ready to step in, and in large part, this was to, quote, save the homeland. The military leaders, the generals at the top, who were still remaining because many had been purged, but the ones that were still remaining in Germany knew that they did not have the military capability to be able to invade Czechoslovakia and successfully, especially defend Germany if France, and then along with England came in. They didn't have that power. And so Chamberlain just literally handed this huge gift to Adolf Hitler, to the Nazi Party, and essentially damned not just thousands, but millions of people to death because the ability to stop Hitler existed militarily in 1938. Had the appeasement not happened and Czechoslovakia hadn't just been handed off to the Germans, and this is historians, we don't know for sure if it would have been successful, but there was a very developed plot for a military coup, and in 1938 by the German military. But once Czechoslovakia was handed off peacefully, quote unquote, to the Nazis, then that coup did not happen. I didn't know about that. I've heard things about plots against Hitler's life, but the thing I had remembered more was sort of something that happened a lot later in the war. In fact, there was a bomb that went off. I don't know if this was in 44. I haven't gotten to that part yet, but there was like this really heavy wooden desk, and the place where the bomb was, protected him, and so he wasn't killed. But this was an effort in 1938. I think it's really important to study history. I think it's really important to try and understand history. And it can be a little surreal at times to read books like The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich as we ponder the ascendant rise of fascism in our world today. But I think that's important. So I'll share more later. I hope you have a great day. Take care.